Hello, and welcome to the SEIU FPSU Speaker Series. Florida Public Services Union is a local branch of Service Employees International Union, and we're dedicated to protecting the rights of workers on the job and in the community. My name is Javon Franks. I'm an external organizer with FPSU, and I'm your host for this edition of our Speaker Series, where we'll be highlighting our endorsed candidates for the 2020 election. Across the state, FPSU represents blue-collar and white-collar workers in municipalities, school districts, as well as at colleges and universities. People who are the lifeblood of our community. Political engagement is one of the critical ways we inform and empower our members and the community. This speaker series will be highlighting SEIU endorsed candidates and recommendations for ballot amendments as well that you'll be seeing on your ballot this year. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, all elections are local, so please be sure to check out your supervisor of election for details concerning vote by mail, early voting, and polling locations. If you have already requested your vote by mail ballot, please return it as soon as possible. We encourage you to vote early to avoid long lines and take advantage of Saturday and Sunday voting. And if you do vote on Election Day, please be sure to go to the polling place where you're last registered to vote. Today, we're pleased to welcome Caprice Edmond, who's running for Pinellas County School District 7, which represents the south end of the county. Caprice, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on tonight. And again, I really appreciate the support.
And based on the process that we used to get to know all of our candidates, our members were enthused to offer that endorsement. You're originally from St. Pete, and you currently teach at the elementary school that you used to attend. What was it like walking back into that school building as a teacher, having had that experience as a student?
It's been surreal. I remember when the school was a brick building, so now it has been renovated or rebuilt, and just being a part or at a place where I was or attended so long ago, it's heartwarming. It's a reminder of the important work that our public schools do, as well as the impact that education has on a student, the ability to come from an area where inequities exist, and then to be where I'm at today. It's really inspiring to be able to make a difference in the lives of other children that are attending that school.
And what inspired you to become a teacher?
After working with youth in foster care and realizing many of the educational challenges that they were having, I decided that it would be better if I went back to school and became an elementary teacher, because elementary, that's the roadblocks or the foundation of education for all of our students. You may know some of the statistics as it relates to third grade and being retained. So my first job was an educator at one of our transformation zone schools teaching third grade. And I'm like, this is really ironic. But again, just seeing how education plays an impact in the lives of our children led me to transitioning to education.
And having that experience in the classroom, coming back to a community and staying in a community that you're from, taking that next step to run for school board, what in your experience led you to make that decision?
Being a parent, being an educator, and a child advocate, as well as being actively involved in the community. For so long, I've heard conversations from various community organizations like the NAACP and many other educational groups as it relates to reading proficiency and the academic success of our students. And I'm like, everybody can't be talking about the same thing, and we consistently not see the strides or changes that we need to see to ensure that all children are successful. So here we are today.
Mhm. Now, I do have some questions from our members who are with the Pinellas County School District. And the school district must preserve the jobs and income of public workers during this state of emergency. Employees need essential wages to care for themselves and their families, and and to be secure to know that their positions will be there when this public health crisis concludes. If elected, how would you address the issues of this moment?
I do know that recently the board negotiated additional wages for educators. What I hope occurs this week, I actually know that PESBA is meeting with the district to discuss their bargaining. So I'm hopeful that the same approach to bargaining salaries and positions will occur with SEIU as well. If elected, I would be advocating that we do our best to retain all educational support professionals or our plant operators, bus drivers, cafeteria employees, et cetera, because it's vital to the run of our school. All of our support professionals are invaluable, so without our cafeteria employees or bus drivers, our educational system would not be doing well. Um, I plan on working with SEIU and members to find out exactly what are their needs and wishes and doing my best to advocate for them when issues arise, as well as when there aren't issues present, just being visible, attending your meetings and getting to know all of our members because again, our employees are one of our most valuable assets.
And as a member of a union yourself, we know that uh, it's a challenging role to be in, advocating for not just your own rights in the workplace, but for those of your colleagues. How do you see unions as integral for the success of the schools?
I see unions as a great collaborative partner. A part of my platform is engaging stakeholders, and of course, are as well as recruitment and retention. And having unions at the table, it will allow us to better recruit, better retain from across the board. I do agree that finding that middle ground is going to be most likely what occurs during the bargaining sessions. Well, hopefully that's what occurs during the bargaining sessions because our goal as unions or the goals of unions are to set high expectations for their members. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm hoping that district leaders are able to find a middle ground. As you know, ultimately the bargaining happens between the union and the district leaders, not necessarily the board members. But it is our responsibility to approve that contract. So I'm hoping everyone is on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Pinellas County, so you may know there was a discrepancy or a misinterpretation of the MOU or contract here as it relates to simultaneous teaching. And I'm just hopeful that everyone is clear on what the MOUs are meaning legally as well as contracts.
So it sounds like you can bring some experience to that as well, and understanding how those contracts come together and how they ultimately play out in the workplace.
Yes, as a being a part of PCTA, I served on the Teacher Appraisal Advisory Committee as well as the Government Relations Committee, advocating with legislators and meeting locally with elected officials to talk about policies and practices that impact all. Um, so again, I look forward to bringing a breath of fresh air of someone that knows what's going on behind the scenes and, you know, that knows how bargaining works.
Mm-hmm. Now, District 7, which represents the south end of Pinellas County, is very diverse in itself, and Pinellas County as a whole has a lot of different populations that
Yeah.
cut across a lot of socioeconomic lines, racial lines, and those can all be competing factors. Within your district and as a member of the school board itself, how will you work to bring together those different interests to ensure that all children in Pinellas County can get a good education?
I really like the fact that I'm able to work with anyone, whether we agree all the time or not. I'm able to be respectful and attempt to understand where you're coming from. I'm also a very collaborative person. Um, our campaign has been endorsed by many diverse groups, and that's representative of the coalition of organizations, people, and community partners that we're going to have working with me and with the school board just to ensure that all of our children are able to be academically successful. As it relates to working with colleagues, I think that's extremely important because many of the items that come across or come to the board will have to vote on. So it's extremely important that I'm able to work cohesively and collaboratively with colleagues. And having been an educator and just being able to work with everyone, I think that ultimately many of the board members have a good heart and believe they're serving the best interests of our schools. So just being able to provide the lived experience and data to support recommendations is going to be insightful for them all. Um, I am an educator. Some of them, or many of them, have an educational or child advocacy background, but there are many things that set me apart. And a part of that is activism in the community, or really advocating from a community approach for education in children.
And speaking of advocating from a community approach, that kind of bottom up grassroots effort is something that's very important to our organization and empowering our members. How do you see that community involvement as something that you can bring more of to the table?
Again, I am a hands-on person. I like to attend, not only attend events, but help put people together, people and organizations together. Um, so I think that, I will be very involved. I do plan on having the school board being, if elected, the school board would be my full-time job. I will no longer be able to be an educator. And I think it takes somebody that's able to put in the amount of hours that's needed to really ensure that our educational system improves. And I think our school system needs all hands on deck, and there are many people that are really willing to put in the work, from parents, organizations, to businesses. So we need somebody that's willing to roll up their sleeves and make it happen, and that's me.
Hmm. To come back to things going on in the classroom, early childhood education is one of your focus areas. And you said that that really lays the foundation for educational success going forward. What are some of the kinds of programs that you would champion if given the opportunity to serve?
Pinellas County Schools, they currently have after school program called Promise Time and partnerships with JWB and our club. I would like to see um, more reading programs provided, because typically that's where our scholars or students are struggling with reading proficiency. I, I'd also like to make sure that those programs are occurring outside of the school so that parents have options. Oftentimes, families are unable to have their kids remain after schools due to other obligations. So maybe if they're able to partner with outside organizations and schedule tutoring for specific times, or have some enrichment or programs on the weekends that families are able to attend, or even if it's virtually. Now that technology is on the forefront, maybe many of our families would be able to have their child attend tutoring virtually. Outside of reading proficiency, I think that it's important that we address the needs of the whole child, advocating for the social, emotional, learning, and physical. as well as making sure families have those resources, because oftentimes there's trauma or other outside factors that people may not be aware of. And whole child learning is related. It relates to all children, whether you're an English language learner, a gifted child. We need to really get back to the basics of looking at what does this child need to be successful, and meeting families where they are.
Outstanding. Caprice, thank you so much for taking this time to speak with our members tonight and all those who are paying attention to this election in District 7. Are there any closing words you'd like to share?
Yes, I would like to share that I am a parent, an educator, child advocate, and I have consistently worked and advocated for children in public education. I am honored to have the support of SEIU because, as a union member and a public school advocate, I know that we need a champion on our school board that's going to advocate for working conditions, that's going to advocate for fair pay and other issues that come along, especially during COVID-19. So again, I really appreciate your support. For additional information, you can visit my website, edmondforeducation.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And please remember, Election Day is November 3rd. And if you already have your mail-in ballot, please get it back in as soon as possible. Caprice Edmond is endorsed by SEIU, FPSU for Pinellas County School Board District 7. Thank you and goodbye.